Okay. Today we'll talk about the stable marriage problem and the stable marriage algorithm. So the problem is very simple. The problem consists of this. You're running a dating service. There are n men and n women. Here n is 4. The men are 1, 2, 3, 4, and the women are A, B, C, D. Okay? Each of these men and women have a list. Okay, they've looked through profiles and they've figured out what their preferences are. So one has this preference, A over B over C over D. Okay, it's completely ordered. It's a very simple problem. Okay, what your challenge is to match them up. So you need to pair them up, and you need to pair them up in some way that results in a good pairing. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do today is we'll study a particular algorithm for this problem, which we'll call, we could call it either the stable marriage algorithm. It's called either the stable marriage algorithm or, for reasons you'll soon see, some people call it the traditional marriage algorithm. Other people call it the Gale-Shapley algorithm. Named after the inventors of the algorithm. David Gale was a professor in the math department when he invented this. Well, he was here for many years. He retired from here, etc. And Shapley is a famous economist. Okay, so how does the algorithm go? Well, the algorithm is sort of it's a bit droll. Think back to the 50s, or even earlier. So the algorithm is clearly asymmetric in a very stark way. Okay, so the algorithm calls for the women to stay at their balconies every morning. Okay, so A, B, C, D are at home at the balconies. The men sort of do all the running around. Each morning, each of them consults their list and sort of says, what's my biggest priority today? Well, my biggest priority is to go a-courting, and they look at the first woman on their list, and they go to that place and go courting. Okay, now, many men might end up in one of these places. So the man sort of, okay, so on the first day, each man looks at his list, and 1 ends up here, and 2, 3, and 4 end up there. Right? So what the woman says to if there's nobody there, of course that's very sad. If there's only one, if there's one guy there, okay, here's where the 50s come in. So the woman says, maybe come back tomorrow. Okay, so at this point, the technical term is she has him on the string. Okay, so A says to 1, maybe, come back tomorrow. B has a choice. B has 2, 3, 4, so she looks at her list, and, well, 2 dominates 3 and 4. So she says to 2, maybe, come back tomorrow. To 3 and 4, she says, never, just go away. Okay, so that's day 1. Day 2. Oh, by the way, that evening, over a stiff drink, 3 and 4 sort of lick their wounds. They cross off B off their list, and next day they try again. Okay, so that evening, this is what happened. They drown their sorrows. They cross off their B off their list, and now the next morning, of course, 1 and 2, who were told maybe, of course, go back the next day to where they were. 3 and 4 look down the list, and 3 goes to C, and 4 goes to A. Okay? So now again, by the rules, maybe come back tomorrow. 1 and 4 for A. But now 4 is better than 1. Okay, so A now says to 4, maybe, come back tomorrow. And to 1, she says, never, just go away. Right? So this time that evening, it's 1's turn to take a stiff drink and, do the needful. So day 3. Okay, so 1 crossed off A from his list, and now he goes to B. So everybody else goes where they were, except for 1, who now goes here. It's not looking good for 1. Okay. So day 4. Everybody else where they were. 1 now goes to C. That looks good, doesn't it? So C says, maybe. To 3, she says, go away. And this keeps going on. Okay, that's the algorithm. It keeps going on and on and on until it results in a pairing. Until the only way it stops is if there's a distinct, every woman has a distinct man who comes courting some morning, and then everybody says maybe, but then globally, everybody's satisfied, so you say, okay, that's it. The process has converged, we marry them off, it's done. We are done with the stable matching. Okay, so is everyone clear about the algorithm? Yeah.
Is it also called the propose and reject algorithm?
It's probably, yes, propose and reject. Okay, so it has many, many names. Okay. Propose and reject, stable marriage, traditional marriage algorithm, Gale-Shapley, whatever you call it. And is everyone clear about what the algorithm is? Do you see any value to me running it through to the end? Is anyone curious? Yeah?
Just curious, why did the 3 go to C and 4 go to A? Like, could it be flipped and it still work?
Sorry, where did 3 go to C and 4 go to A?
After day 1.
After day 1, 3 and 4. Look down 3's list. 3 crossed off B. The next one is C. So that's who he's got to go to. They are just marching down their list. They've got their list. They've got their agenda. That's what they're doing. They just go to the first one. She says no. Go to the second one. She says no. Go to the third, and so on. That's all they're doing. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So now you might be thinking, yes, dating is important, especially at this age, but surely it's not the most important question to be studying in computer science. Why are we doing this? Surely, there's something wrong here. Okay, so here's the thing. This algorithm has been incredibly useful. Okay? One of the places it's used is in the residency match. This happens every year. As graduates come out of medical school, they apply to medical residency in hospitals. And the way these residents are allocated to hospitals is through this kind of algorithm. And in fact, not only is that the case, but before this kind of algorithm was used, there was chaos in this medical residency. Back in the 40s, there was real chaos because hospitals decided that, this was, they wanted to get the best graduates. And so they started making their offers earlier and earlier. So instead of just before these, the graduates actually got their degrees, they started going back a year and making the offers a year early. And then 2 years early. So junior year, they were already making the offers. And they were on the verge of making them in their sophomore year. Right? It was sort of chaotic. And eventually the American Medical Association stepped in and they sort of said, well, medical schools will just not give out any information about their graduates until, shortly before graduation. So what happened at that point is then hospitals started giving graduates short fuse offers. So they'd give an offer, but now, of course, if they made an offer and the person eventually rejected a month later, they were sort of, they were out of good options. So instead of giving a month, they started giving a week and then a day. And then eventually, these short fuse offers got so short, it was an hour or within that phone call, right? So it was within a minute you had to decide, are you going there or not, right? So again, this was untenable. It started going haywire, and eventually the solution to this was this kind of algorithm. Okay? So that was one place where this algorithm has been completely revolutionized how things were done. This algorithm was used in New York City in assigning children to school children, right, to public schools. So there was a procedure to do this, which led to completely suboptimal results. And then Alvin Rath, one of the people who worked on it, actually implemented this algorithm, and it resulted in, a complete revolution in the school system. It's been used in the kidney match program. So, donors who donate organs to, so usually, often it's a relative who is donating a kidney to somebody who needs it. But often, the kidney just doesn't match. And so now what you want to do is you want to find two donor recipient pairs, so that maybe this kidney matches that and that kidney matches this. Okay. Or you might find three, where this kidney matches that, this kidney matches that, and this one matches that. Right? Or you might find 30, where this one, et cetera, et cetera. And the way they do this is through, again, this algorithm. And basically what's happened is the number of kidney replacement operations has gone up 30-fold in the US over the last so many years because of this algorithm. Just because it's been possible to match people up and save so many lives. So as you can see, this has had an enormous impact in the real world. Okay. Maybe there's one more measure of success. The final measure of success maybe is that 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. 2012. So there was a residency match, there were schools, there was the kidney match. And then 2 years ago, in 2012, Alvin Roth and Shapley got the Nobel Prize in economics for their work on this algorithm. Right? Why is the name Gale not in there? Well, because the Nobel Prize is not awarded posthumously. So, it was unfortunate. The Nobel Prize just did not get awarded in time for Gale to receive it. Although in some sense he, in every other way, but one thinks of him as being one of the recipients.
Wait, so 3 people made this algorithm?
Well, the initial algorithm is due to Gale and Shapley, and then Roth came up with, there are many further refinements that had to be come up with to do this, and he actually also went all the way to actually deploying it in various settings. Okay, so that's the algorithm. That's one of the reasons we are studying it, because it's so important. Okay. Actually, let me say just a little bit about why it's so important. Okay, why is it so important to economists? Well, the reason is that this algorithm sort of, it's orthogonal to the usual way economists think about distributing goods or etc., which is through markets, free markets, right? This is patently not a free market. Right? Normally you would say, well, you want to assign residents to hospitals, let the free market do its thing. But these are instances where the free market did not do its thing. It did not do a good job. And instead, there was something else, which is an algorithm, which is completely centralized. Right? You provide all the data, and somebody says, okay, I'll allocate this, and so on. Right? It's completely centralized. Right? So it flies in the face of the usual approach in economics. It's very powerful. Algorithms are very powerful. Right? And in this case, it says something very different. It says there's a very different approach that works well, whereas traditional markets do not. That's why this was so important. Okay. There's an entire field of computational economics, algorithmic game theory, where people study how algorithms and economics relate to each other. Right? This is becoming more and more important with things like the Google auction, the ad auction. Right? So there are all these centralized auctions where you cannot tell, is it really traditional economics, or is it now algorithms, or is it some sort of interesting mixture of the two? So those of you who are interested in economics, that's a very interesting direction to explore in the future. Okay, so back to this algorithm. One of the reasons we are studying this is because it's such a simple, simply stated problem, simply stated algorithm. It has had enormous impact, but then the other reason we are studying it is because we are going to analyze this algorithm. And in order to analyze this algorithm, we are going to use proof techniques, induction. Right? So you'll see induction at work. How do you actually use it in computer science, in the study of algorithms, in the analysis of algorithms? Okay? Yes? Each of those takes on slightly different variant. There are different constraints that come up. In actually all of the so the algorithm we'll talk about is very basic, and then in order to make it apply to each of these settings, you really have to do a lot more work beyond that. So, for example, even in the residency match, to really make it work, you have to take care of a few other things. One is that these days, many of the medical graduates apply as couples. Right? So they want, they have constraints. They want to be close together, either in the same hospital or nearby. And you have to meet that constraint, otherwise, you're going to make many people unhappy. There are other constraints. So a hospital might want different kinds of specializations. So they might say, well, I want a few graduates who are specializing in cardiology and a few who have these interests and so on. It's not an unconstrained problem. It's that, there are constraints on their end that you need to take into account as well. And so now you take the basic algorithm and then you work through what you have to do in order to put in all these bells and whistles. Okay, and so this was actually carried out for all of these. Okay, so now let's talk about what kind of questions we might ask about such an algorithm. So first question, most basic question. Does it halt? It would be a very poor algorithm if we designed it, so that sometimes on some inputs it just doesn't halt. That would be embarrassing. So, how do we know this one halts? Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the point is, every day that the algorithm does not halt, there's at least one man who was told never. Right? That evening, he went back home and crossed off a woman off his list. Okay? How long are these lists? Well, each list has n elements in it. If there are n men and n women, right? If there are n men and n women, then among the men's lists, the men have n lists of n items, which is n squared entries. Each day that the algorithm does not halt, at least one of these entries gets crossed off. Right? So it takes n squared days before all the entries are crossed off. And then, it's your convention. Do you have one extra day for the marriage? Well, let's say there is. So you have at most n squared plus 1 days. Right? 1 day to notice that everybody's, you've got to come back 1 day and say, okay, everybody's paired up. Okay, so that's n squared plus 1. But whatever, it's a finite number. It halts. Now, how good is the is this how okay, so it halts, but does it actually find a pairing? Does it always find a pairing, or does it just halt and not find a pairing? Well, could it ever halt and not find a pairing? Well, maybe. Maybe one of the men runs out of options. He just runs down his list and he falls off the end and never finds anybody. So we'll have to show that, in fact, it does always find a pairing. The answer is yes, but it'll take us another move to do that. But given that it finds a pairing, is it good? And the answer here depends upon what do we mean by good. What are we trying to achieve? Okay? We could be trying to make sure that as many people get their first choice as possible, or as few people get their last choice as possible, or we give points for first versus second versus third, and we make sure that the total score of this pairing is as high as possible. Okay? There are many different objectives we could be trying to optimize. Now, in an economic setting, one of the most fundamental objectives is stability. Okay, it's called equilibrium in economics. So you want some sort of stability criterion. You want whatever pairing you have created to be stable under some criterion. Okay, so let's look at a little small example. So you have two men, Brad and Justin, and two women, let's say A and J, Angelina and Jennifer. And let's say that this is your this is the preference list, and A, of course, also likes B versus J. Well, let's decorate the J here to say that this is the woman, okay, and that's J. Also likes. Okay. And so now, suppose you have a, suppose you create a pairing. So suppose you matched up, you matched up Justin with A and okay. So you created this matching, this pairing, okay? So B with J and let me just call them 1 and 2. It's a little easier. So there's 1 and 2. One, two, 1, 2. Okay. So you have this kind of a matching, and now let's say you were to say, look, J really likes 1, so let's pair them up. And now let's pair up A with 2. So that's the only possibility. Okay? So our pairing is A is matched with 2 and J is matched with 1.
Which one are the men?
So 1, 2 are the men, H are the women, let's say. It doesn't matter. It's symmetrical.
One doesn't like you.
Well, yeah, of course. That's life, right? But the problem here is not just that one doesn't like J as much, but also A doesn't like 2 as much. So in fact, A and 1 prefer each other to, A prefers 1 to 2, and 1 prefers A to J. Right? This is not a good thing. Right? Because this is an unstable situation. Right? So A and 1 are what we would call a rogue couple. Okay? They're a rogue couple in the sense that it can't possibly be stable, right? I mean, sooner or later they're going to be working late on a homework and, something like that. Okay, so what we want to do is so our notion of a good pairing is one which has no rogue couples. So good is equal to no rogue couples. Okay? And we'll call that stable. Hence the name, stable marriage problem. So that's what we are trying after. So our problem now is well defined. Okay, that's what we are after. We are given this list of n men and n women with preferences. What we are trying to do is come up with a pairing which satisfies this condition, that there are no rogue couples, and therefore it's a stable pairing. And the claim is this particular algorithm that we came up with, which is this sort of droll algorithm, has the property that it always holds, it always produces a pairing, and the pairing is always stable. Yeah. What if it's not possible? So what we'll actually show is that one always exists, and this will always find it. Right? Because it always holds, it always produces a pairing, and whenever it produces a pairing, it's stable. So it shows that no matter how the preferences are arranged, there's always a stable pairing. Yes?
So what if, like, one's the most desirable, and then two's second most desirable, and so on and so forth, and the same holds for the men?
Yeah.
Would the algorithm not work, or would you simply, there's no way to not produce rogue couples there?
The algorithm will always produce a pairing, no matter what the preference lists are. So in your instance, it'll still produce a pairing, and the pairing is guaranteed to be stable. Stability doesn't mean everybody gets their first choice. Stability just means no pair has an incentive to elope. Right? There's no pair who are saying to each other, "I'm really unhappy here, but won't it be great?" And they get together. Right? So that just won't happen. Right? Okay? That's the only thing we are guaranteeing, but that's a very important thing. Okay? Yeah.
So row couple defined as either would rather be with the other.
No, both would rather be with each other than with their current mates, current partners. Right? Both have an incentive to deviate from the current pairing, and that's not good. So, if one of them would rather be with the other, but the other would not, there's no harm, no foul. There's no problem at all. That's still stable, right? It's only if both of them would rather, right? That's a problem for us. Okay? Yeah.
Even in that case, can we have stable?
I'm sorry?
Even in that case, can we have stable?
Oh, yes, sure, yeah. In this case, there should be a stable pairing, shouldn't there? As soon as you pair up 1 with A, everything's stable. So if you have 1, A, 2, J, that's a stable pairing, right? Because what, look at it from this point of view. J would rather be with 1, but 1 doesn't want to be paired with J. 1 is pretty happy with A, right? So this is not a row couple. What about 2 and A? Well, 2 would rather be paired up with A, but A is perfectly happy with 1, so no row couples there, right? Now, of course, 2 and J are pretty unhappy with each other, but, there's...
Live.
Yeah. Okay. 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 So now let's prove something about this algorithm. Let's prove that it does create a stable pairing. Okay. So there was this very good question about, well, how do we know a stable pairing even exists, right? And so let me, here's sort of okay. Let's do an aside. So one way you might imagine that you get from something which has row couples to showing that there must be a stable pairing is by saying, look, let's start with any old pairing. There might be row couples. But now what we could do is sort of, take this approach, let the market do the work, right? So let's say, let's have open season. If we have a row couple, let them just elope, and then we'll pair up the other two. Right? We are letting things get better and better, right? I mean, after all, if these two wanted to be together, why not just let them pair them up? We improve the situation. And then we pair those guys up, and maybe, and then we see, if there are more row couples, just let them get together, and maybe the things would get better and better until we get to stability. So the claim is, it doesn't work that way, because you let this row couple get together, you reduce the number of row couples by 1, but now you might have introduced another row couple in the process, and this process may never converge. So to see this, let's look at a variant of this problem. It's called the roommates problem. Okay, so now you are just a bunch of people. You want to assign. 2 of them can go into a room. You just want to assign roommates, right? So you want to pair them up. The difference is now they are not 2 genders. It's just, you can just pair up anybody with anybody else. Okay, so you have four people, A, B, C, D, and let's say these are their preference lists. A would rather be with B, C, and then D. B would rather be with C, A, and then D. And C would rather be with A, B, and then D. Okay? Okay, so now you start. Okay, so you start off with a pairing. Let's say you have A and B together, and you have C and D. Okay. So is this stable, or is there a row couple? Well, A is pretty happy. A has his first choice, but B is looking around and saying, well, look, A is not bad, but C would be a much better roommate. And C says, look, get me out of there. So here you have your rogue couple. Okay, so we say, okay, in the spirit of letting rogue couples get together to improve the situation, let's get B and C together. So we get B and C together, and now A is poor guy is with D, but okay, so now B is very happy, C is his first choice, and C sort of says, B is not bad, but A would be better. And A, his opinion. It's clear, right? A just wants anything to get out of that particular room. So you have a rogue couple, C and A. Okay, so let's improve the situation by putting C and A together. And now we have B and D. And again, C is happy. A would rather room with B. Right? And B wants to get out of this room, so here you have a rogue couple. You put them together and you go back. Right? So you can just keep breaking up these rogue couples and you'll keep cycling through those things. You never get any closer. Right? So somehow, the fact that this algorithm works has to do with the fact that we have two genders. Right? It's got to rely, so our analysis has got to rely crucially on that fact. It's an inherent part of the reason that we get a stable solution and that this algorithm works. So we're going to now chase this down and figure out why the algorithm works, and it's going to be a more sophisticated analysis. Yeah. Why are we not considering D's preferences? We can, let's put them down. It just doesn't matter because nobody likes D, so it's, right? So it's so okay. Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? But no, we could put down D's preferences, but it wouldn't change anything, right? Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Yeah.
So within those categories, do you use the same amount of elements, or like?
Yeah. So the question is, well, for this algorithm to work, the question was, well, of course we need to have these two categories, men and women, but did we really need exactly the same number of men and women? The answer is no. It doesn't have to be, right? It's just for simplicity that we did this, but otherwise it works under much more generality, including the case where in the residency match, so one of these sites would become the hospitals, and the other side would become the graduates. But the graduates come in two flavors: either they are applying alone or they are applying as couples. So for us, one of these genders would now become the hospital, and the other gender would become either couples or as individuals. So, yeah. So the fact that it's men and women, it's just for us to think about. That's how it was originally thought about, right? But you use it as you use it. Okay. Okay. So, yeah.
Is there a way to prove that there's some ordering of the lists where all stable pairs come out with the least optimal pairing?
With the least optimal pairing. I don't know what that means.
Like they get paired up with the last.
Oh, I see. Well, we'll get there later. You'll as we start understanding more and more what happens, you'll hopefully automatically see the answer to that. Yeah, implicitly. Okay. Okay, so now, for the rest of the lecture, we are going to be proving things about this algorithm. But before we start proving things about the algorithm, let me try to give you some intuition about the algorithm. So what is it about the algorithm that we are going to be invoking in these proofs? Okay? Maybe this is backwards. Maybe I just don't know how to keep the suspense. Okay, I'm sort of giving you the punchline right in the beginning, but I don't know how to hold on to suspense anyway, so I'll just tell you. Okay? So this is sort of the intuition that eventually you get out of the proofs, but what's the intuition going to be about this algorithm? What's going to make it possible to analyze the algorithm? So somehow there are going to be two aspects of this algorithm that are going to be crucial. One is for the men, they start off in the most optimistic possible mode. Right? They're going from the top of their list. Things just get worse and worse for them as the algorithm goes on. Right? Their self-view sort of takes a beating through this algorithm. They start off sort of saying, top of my list, that's where I'm going for, and then things just it's a nightmare. It just keeps unfolding through the algorithm for them. For the women, it's the other way around. They start somewhere, right? Wherever it is, with this proposal or nothing or whatever. And then, if they ever have somebody on a string, they always have somebody on a string, right? Because that's the whole point of having somebody on the string. You say, well, come back tomorrow, and he comes back tomorrow, right? So at the very least, they are going to be as well off as they were yesterday, and hopefully even better off, because now more people, they'll have more people. Okay, so things keep getting better and better for the women. They keep getting worse and worse for the men. And that's how this algorithm works. And that's the key to analyzing it. Okay? All right. So let's actually state this formally. Okay. So my goodness. Okay. Sorry, should we take a moment's break? I've just pulled a muscle, so let's take a minute break, and we'll continue in a minute. Okay. 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 So if M proposes to W on some day, day number k, then on that and every subsequent day, W has someone on a string that she likes at least as much. As M. Okay. So it's sort of saying things get better and better. On any day, if there's any man, then well, it only, it's got to be at least as good from then on, right? And how would you prove it? Well, you'd prove it, of course, by induction. On J, the number of okay, so what we want to show is that for every j greater than or equal to k, she has somebody on the string who she likes at least as much as M. And you do that by induction on J. You sort of say, well, whoever she had on the string, he's going to come back, and he's at least as good as M, and it can only get better than that, right? So it's a straightforward induction, but it's an induction, right? Is it clear? Is it clear what the improvement lemma is saying? It's just saying things can't get worse, right? They only get better for one. Given that, we can go back and answer this question. How do we know the algorithm always finds a pairing? Okay. Well, there's a very slick proof that it always finds a pairing. Remember, we know that it halts. So how do we know that how could it fail to find a pairing? Well, the way it could fail to find a pairing is maybe some man goes through his entire list and he just gets rejections all the way down the line. Okay? So we have to show that can't happen. So why can't it happen? Well, so let's assume. So assume. So we are in the thing of find pairing. So we say assume for contradiction that the algorithm halts and it doesn't find a pairing. Right? Meaning that some man ran through his list. He crossed everybody off, right? And he didn't get to be paired with anybody. But what does this mean? Well, what it means is he actually each day he went out and he proposed to a different woman on his list. Each one of them, because everybody was on the list, right? So meaning M proposed to each woman. By the improvement lemma, what we know is that every woman has somebody on a string. They have to be different people on a string, right? By the end of the algorithm, which implies by improvement lemma, eventually, every woman has some man on string. Right? But none of them has this man on the string. Right? So there are only n minus 1 other men, there are n women. How could it be? How could there be n distinct men on the string without this guy? Contradiction. Right? Does everyone see what the contradiction is? Has some man on the string and distinct. So on the last day, every woman has a distinct man on the string. Okay? But there are only n minus 1 other men. So that's a contradiction. And so we know that we must halt with a pairing. Okay? But n women. So you can't have a pairing. You can't have a distinct man for each one without involving the last one. Okay. Now let's go ahead and prove that the pairing is stable. There's no row couples. Okay. So let's see. So let's say that, so again, assume for contradiction that there's a row couple. Okay? Let's say that M is paired with W in this pairing, but he'd rather be with W star. So we have a row couple M W star. Okay. So we have a pairing where M was paired with W and everybody else was paired with other people. You know, there was a pairing of all of them. These two were paired up, but now these guys are a row couple, meaning M would rather be with W star and W star would rather be with M than whoever she is with. So I'm going to claim this just cannot happen. Okay. So why not? Again, we are going to carry out a formal proof, but the reason is, again, you know, this notion that for men things get worse and worse, women they get better and better in this algorithm, and somehow the matching that results is the one where they cross. And the fact that they're going in opposite directions allows you to infer that, in fact, it's going to be stable, that M just doesn't want, you know, if he preferred W star, then he can't have her. Right? It can't possibly be stable. Okay. So here's how we are going to. Here's the reasoning. The reasoning is this. You see, in this algorithm, M was paired up with W because he first tried all the better alternatives. He went down his list, starting from the top. So if he really prefers W star, he already did go and propose to her in this algorithm. You know, there was some day when he did go to her balcony. And she passed him up for somebody that day. Or some subsequent day, right? There was some point where she told him, no, never. And that's why he went down the list and he ended up with W. Right? Okay. So on that day when she told him no, never, she told him no, never in favor of somebody. Right? There was some other man who she said maybe to. Now, by the improvement, you know, and that man she prefers to M. By the improvement lemma, the man she ended up with is even better, if anything, right? Because things are getting better and better for her. So that day she preferred whoever she was with to M, and now she prefers M star even more to whoever she was with that day. Right? So there's no way she would want to switch M star for M. No rogue couple. This can't be a rogue couple, right? She just doesn't want M over M star. Is this clear? Is it clear why it's stable? It's very simple if you look at it the right way. Right? You can get yourself all tangled up about it, but it's really just this thing, you know. The fact that things are getting better and better for one and worse for the other. One side and the other, right? And that's all we are exploiting here. Yes?
So this algorithm assumes that preferences stay throughout.
Oh, yes, yeah. So this algorithm, we are assuming we start off with the preferences, nothing changes about that. Yeah, it's a toy situation, right? Any questions about this proof? Sorry, we are talking about that proof right now. Maybe can I have a show of hands? How many of you feel you understood this proof? Wow, that's great. That's excellent. Okay, well. How many of you feel, you know, an hour later you'll remember the proof? An hour from now. Yeah, okay. Well, that's still pretty good. Okay. Yes?
I have a question. So when you wrote the lemma,
Yeah.
if we were writing this proof, would we just be able to write something and be like, oh, I'm going to say that that's a lemma? Because you use that because like everything else
Yeah.
is this, right?
Yes.
So then like how would you have known that like that?
How would you have known to prove that lemma?
Yeah.
Well, the reason you know to prove the lemma is because it's crucial here that, you know, as I said, the reason that this algorithm works is you have these two sides. For one, things are getting better and better. For the other, things are getting worse and worse. And then we are using this fact all over the place. So we had better prove it. And that's what the improvement lemma is saying. Things are getting better and better. Right? Yeah. How would you articulate it? Okay. Oh, I haven't read. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Let's try writing something. Okay, so we say, well, suppose we look at suppose there's a row couple. Say the row couple is M W star. In the pairing that was output by the algorithm, M is matched to somebody else, W. So this is the actual pairing. This is part of the pairing, right? The pairing goes on. M is matched to W, W star is matched to M star, and everybody else is matched as they want. You know, there's the rest of it. There's that row couple. We want to show there's a contradiction. So what do we say? We say, well, M obviously prefers W star to W. Therefore, M proposed to W star in the past and got rejected. Which means that before he proposes to M, he must have been rejected by W star. M proposed to W star and was rejected. Right? Rejected in favor of somebody. In favor of M prime. Somebody. Now, by the improvement lemma, implies W star prefers M star to M prime. prefers meaning greater than or equal to, at least as much as m prime. Right? So now W star prefers m star to m prime, but W star also prefers m prime to m. You also know that W star prefers m prime to m. Right? So meaning that W star prefers m star to m. So no row couple contradiction. Right? Okay? Okay, so now let's try to understand now who's better off in this algorithm. Are the men better off or are the women better off? Okay. Any opinions? Who would you rather, which role would you rather play if this was if you were told these are the only two roles allowed? Which do you think gives you the advantage? The women. Why? You don't get rejected. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah. The men. Why?
I read the notes.
Oh, you read the notes. Okay. 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 So let's investigate this question. Who has the advantage in this algorithm? Okay. So let's sort of define let's define the optimal pairing. So let's define the optimal woman for a particular man, and let's define the optimal man for a particular woman. Right? So you're given the preference list and you want to know who's the best, what's the best choice for each man and what's the best choice for each woman. Right? Now you might think, why does this need defining? I mean, it's obvious, right? It's the first one on their list. That's the best one. Right? But what we mean by optimal is, the optimal feasible. Right? It could be that the first one on their list is just never going to happen. Right? It's not, there's no stable situation in which they can be paired up with the first one on their list. So by optimal, we mean what's the best one, what's the first one on their list that they could be paired up with in some stable situation, in some stable pairing. Okay? So it's the best choice on their list that they can be paired with in some stable pairing. Meaning you're saying, look, if the rest of the universe cooperates and everybody else arranges themselves in pairs in just the right way, right, so that this particular guy gets his best, the best possible, into the best possible situation he can possibly get into. Well, that's his optimal situation, right? So you get a stable, you get a stable pairing, and he's paired up with this particular one. It could also be that there are other stable pairings where he's paired up with somebody not as high on his list. That's fine. This one is the optimal for him. Anybody above that is not even feasible, right? Because you put them together and there's no way of pairing up the rest so that you get a stable situation. So it's just hopeless, right? So that would be his optimal choice. So let me put up an example and we'll see how this works. Okay, so So here's an example. You have 1, B, A, C, D, 2, A, B, D, C, 3, D, C, A, B, and 4, A, B, C, D. And then you have A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 4, 3, 3, 1, 4, 2, and 1, 4, 3, 2. And I claim that there are 4 different stable pairings. Okay, so in this scenario, there are 4 different stable pairings. So there are let me call them S1, which is A1, B2, C3, and D4. S2, which is A2, B1, C3, and D4. S3, which is A1, B2, C4, D3. And S4, which is A2, B1, C4, D3. Okay, so there are 4 different stable pairings in this case. And now you can look at it from each of their viewpoints. So, for example, what's the optimal pairing for optimal man for D? Well, D can be, you look at all the stable pairings, and D can be paired with either 3 or 4. There's no way to pair D with 1 and make it stable. Okay? So what's the optimal man for D? Well, it's got to be 4. What about for 4? Right, 4 can be paired up with either C or D. Right? There's no way that he can be paired up with A in a stable pairing. So the optimal woman for him is C. On the other hand, for 1, he can be paired up with B. So that's his optimal. Right? Is that clear? Is it clear what the notion of optimality means? So now, here's the scandalous theorem about this algorithm. Okay, so the theorem says that the pairing produced by this algorithm, the stable marriage algorithm or propose and reject algorithm, is man optimal. Okay, this is a very strong condition. What it means is every man gets his optimal choice. He gets the best possible choice he could under stability. Okay? Simultaneously. Right here we were just saying, what's the optimal choice for this man? Now what we're saying is, actually the stable pairing that's produced by this algorithm happens to give every man individually the best possible outcome that he could possibly hope for, simultaneously. Okay? The scandal actually deepens further when you consider the notion of pessimal. And the pessimal man for W. So again, pessimal means what's the worst possible choice that this man could make and still be stable, in some stable matching, stable pairing. So that the next theorem says the pairing produced by the stable marriage algorithm is woman pessimal. So what this algorithm produces is every woman gets the worst possible choice she could get under stability. Okay? Isn't that scandalous? Isn't that surprising, though?
Sexist.
Yeah, isn't it? But how would you understand this? I mean, why should it be the case? Do you understand it intuitively? And does anyone understand why it might be so different? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some elements of what you're saying in there. Maybe does anyone else want to try to say it a little more crisply? I think you basically yes.
The man goes from the top of the list to the bottom, while the woman goes from wherever she is towards the top. So the man starts trying at the very best, while the woman starts with what she gets.
Yeah, possibly. Again, I mean, this is sort of the right idea, but I still want to elicit something a little crisper. So anybody else wants to say, yeah.
Because in love, you're supposed to go for it, and that's how you get the
Well, okay, that's what it is. Okay, all right, yeah. Sorry,
The algorithm is supposed to produce a stable marriage.
I'm sorry.
The algorithm is supposed to produce the very first stable marriage.
Yeah.
At any cost. So by your improvement lemma, the woman gets optimistic. And
Okay.
and
Okay.
comes down. So the very first stable marriage is going to be at the point that
Yeah.
it just stops. So it doesn't try to improve, and there's still like a boundary that it will go around, or it stops at the very first.
Okay, so let me just try to. I just realized we are running out of time. So let me just say it very quickly, and then I'll even try to prove it very quickly. But we'll see how it works. Okay, so let me try to say first what the intuition is. The intuition is the reason the women come off worse is because sometimes they don't even get to express their opinions. So, for example, consider the case where all the men had distinct first choices. So their first choices were all distinct. Meaning the first day everybody goes to a different woman's place. They get a matching right away. The women didn't even get to express their preferences, right? They did not say anything. So it's clear that the men got their first choices. The women didn't get to express their preferences at all, right? So that should tell you what's going on. Now, let me try to quickly sketch for you why it's male optimal. Okay? And I don't know if I'll succeed because we have only 3 minutes, but let's try our best. Okay, so let's, again, by contradiction. So we are proving the top theorem there. It's male optimal. It's man optimal. So let's look at, suppose that it's not. Suppose not. Not male optimal. Okay, man optimal. Okay, so then there must be some first day that some man got rejected by his optimal woman. So there's a first day some man M rejected by his optimal woman. Let's call her W star. Okay, she rejected him in favor of M star. Right? Must be the case, right? if that happened. So now, since W star was his optimal woman, to be optimal, they have to be in some stable marriage, stable pairing, right? There must be some stable pairing where M is paired with W star. Otherwise, she couldn't possibly be optimal. She might not even be feasible. So there exists stable pairing such that M is paired with W star. And M star is paired with somebody else. Right? This must be a stable pairing. Now I claim that this is going to be a rogue couple. Why? Well, W star obviously prefers M star to M, right? Because she rejected M in favor of M star, right? We know, we have evidence. She likes M star better than M because she actually did reject him in favor of M star. What about M star? How do we know he prefers W star to whoever he's with? This is where we are going to use the fact that this was the first day some man got rejected by his optimal woman. Right? M star has not yet been rejected by his optimal woman. He's not yet been rejected. Right? So we know that W star is at least as good as his optimal woman. Because he's working down his list. He has not yet been rejected by his optimal woman. So we know that for M star, W star is at least as good as his optimal woman. What does that mean? It means whoever he's paired with, he prefers to be with W star. Right? You can't have anybody better than optimal. Right? He can't possibly be in a stable pairing with somebody better than his optimal. So whoever he's with, he prefers W star. We already said W star prefers M star. So that's a rogue couple. Contradiction. Right? Okay, now, what was this proof? It turns out this proof where you say, find the first day where you have where something went wrong. This is another way of doing induction. It's called induction by the well-ordering principle. It's a style in which we do induction. Okay? Okay, so that's the proof. The moral is, of course, make the first move.